So I'm going to shift gears, and tonight we're going to jump into the last class of our School of Ministry. And we've been doing a 6-week course called Spirit Partnership, Moving in the Gifts of the Holy Spirit. And if you're a teacher, you can exit stage right. But we are going to continue with our last class. Now, some of you might be in on the surprise, but I have a surprise. Tonight, we are closing the manual, so to speak, and we're having our guest, but who's not a guest to us, our very own Mark Elman is going to be sharing with us some of the testimonies of his time in Malawi. I'm really excited about this, but before he comes, this is a really wonderful opportunity because he's going to share with you obviously some miracles and healings and some amazing stuff that the Lord did. This is still another classroom moment. This is our 6th class, and it's a welcomed interruption because it's in testimonies like what we're going to hear that you begin to have your heart ignited to trust God to see more of the move of His Spirit in your life. So let's not just listen with idle ears, but let's have our heart tuned to be lit on fire by what Mark is carrying and the testimonies. God's no respecter of persons. So let's put on the mindset, God, if you did it for him, you can do it for me. So listen with expectancy. Number 2, listen for his process. Listen for how is it that the Lord used Mark? How is it that the Lord led him? How is it that these things came about? And as you listen, you could learn some tips or some keys or some tools for your own ministry and your own moving in the gifts of the Spirit. Because our brother Mark is a real expert in some areas in terms of miracles, healing, word of knowledge. The Lord uses him very strongly. So every time I'm around Mark, he doesn't know this, but I'm kind of like, I'm just trying to, I'm not literally doing that, but my spirit is like trying to like get whatever he's got in the Lord. I'm like sucking off of it and trying and receiving it from him. So I want to encourage you to do that. Come, we don't necessarily want to put a man on a pedestal, but when we honor a prophet, the name of a prophet, we receive the anointing and the gifting that's on their life. So are you ready to do that? Awesome. Mark, come on up. Let's give him a round of applause. He's back.
Thanks. All right. Wow, that was quite the introduction. Thanks, Dave. But I would like Dave and Bill to stand up because, for 12 solid weeks, they worked hard on the School of Ministry. And I don't know about you guys, but I was blessed by everything that you guys brought that I was around for. So, yeah. Love you guys. Yeah. So, if you followed a little bit on Instagram, you saw some of the things that happened. I'll share a couple testimonies and a little bit of something that I'm thinking about. So, it's so good not to speak with a translator. You're free. You got to talk and then wait, and then it takes, a half an hour turns into an hour. But really, it's really good to be back. Really appreciate the prayers and the family back home. It gets a little rough, but I want to tell you that this time was really, really special. Chris Lindbergh, from Canada, he's probably watching now, so hey, Chris. But he really wanted a taste of Africa in Malawi. He's been to Zambia a couple times, but this time was his first time in Malawi and his first time doing crusades. So if you don't know what the crusades are like, or if you have experienced one, you know what I'm talking about. But they literally set up like a little stage and have a PA system, and if the knob goes from 1 to 10, it's on 11, and they just crank that thing right over and as loud as they can get it. And you're just like, if you're any sort of sound guy, you're like, no, please. No. And you're fighting some hearing loss every once in a while. But we fought through it. And Chris and I just kind of bounced back and forth inside of each service. And we did some inside, some outside. It's the raining season, so we got a little wet every once in a while, so we'd be preaching, and then we'd be soaked. And then we'd keep preaching, and we'd get more soaked. So it was really fun that way. But so Chris has got an amazing heart for healing, for not so much words of knowledge, but he wants souls and he wants healing. So I was wondering how this is going to go together. Like, how does this work? Like, usually I kind of see him separately, but with him, he was calling out salvations and then more activating the people in healing. So there was times when there were so many people to pray for that we would have them put their hands on themselves and pray and release it then. And when we did that, we would just start calling out testimonies. Okay, now who's healed? Come on, tell us. And they'd just pour up to the front and start saying what their problem was and how it's gone. It was so amazing to work that way. And so I really want to encourage you guys that sometimes we get worked up in a prayer. And it turns more into emotion than it does into the actual healing power of what you have. I mean, it says lay hands on the sick and they'll be healed. And so that's what we went with. Just lay your hands on them. Just believe. You know, one of the things that it was Prophet Kubis, maybe it was you that asked the question, but he was asking Prophet Kubis, he was pulling people out of wheelchairs, and he said, I've been trying to pull people out of wheelchairs, but I can't get them up. And he said, well, the problem is that you're looking at the wheelchair. You're not looking at the healing. So it's so easy to get into a mode where you're actually looking at the problem. And what happens with that is you're exalting the problem above God instead of exalting God. And one thing I noticed when I watched him heal, he would always turn his head away. And I remember talking with Pastor Chris about this one, and I was wondering what he was doing. And he said he's actually looking away unto the cross. He's looking at the finished work. And then he looks back to the person, and just like that, it's done. And that's how easy it is. It's simple. It's got to be easy. It's got to be something that we can all do. It's got to be something that we walk in. Like, it's simple. Simple. So I do want to share a testimony with you from Blantyre. So we flew into Blantyre first, and then down to the Magoe region, which is where our orphanage is, and then back into Lilongwe at the end. And when we got to Blantyre, we had such a great time. And Chris did this salvation message, and this one little guy got saved, and he went home and he told his dad. And I guess he shouldn't have done that, but on the other hand, I think he should have, because he was a Catholic. And he went home and told his dad. He said, Dad, I got saved. I met Jesus. And he said, you what? And I guess he really jumped down this kid's throat. And he said, who did it? Who gave you this guy? And so he told him about the pastor. Because we had actually signed up, so we had little sheets that went around. If you've ever been to like a Billy Graham thing or Franklin Graham, there's papers that go around. There was 20 pastors in Blantyre. It wasn't just UWC that was there, but there's so many people come from around the area that we want to get them back to the sections, into churches that are close to them, because a lot of them are just walking or on bikes. So he goes back, tells his dad. His dad's furious and grabs like 2 machetes and goes to the pastor's house. And he wants to get a piece of this pastor. And so the pastor calls McMoore and says, you got to get over to the house now. One of the boys that got saved last night, his dad's here. He's irate with machetes in his hand. He wants to kill me. And so Salima goes and talks to him. And somehow gets him calmed down and gets him gets him. He basically said, listen, he goes, we serve the same God. We just serve him a little different. And he goes, so this is how I serve my God. And this is what I do. So after he got done describing the way that he serves the Lord, the guy actually fell on his knees and gave his life to Christ. Dropped the swords, gave his life to Christ. And so I was sitting in a coffee shop waiting for him. He was an hour late. And if you know McMoore, that's like maybe 2 minutes, to him. And so I'm like, you're an hour late. You better have a good excuse. And he tells me the story. He was just there. The guy gets saved. So there was 19 other pastors involved. So he goes around and apologizes to all 19 pastors because word spreads like wildfire. And this guy, he wanted to make sure that all the pastors knew that he wasn't out to cause them any harm or anything. And that night he falls asleep. And we went to Malawi. And on the way back from Malawi, I asked him, I said, how about that kid? What happened to that kid and his dad and stuff? And he goes, you're not going to believe this. The man fell asleep that night, and he had a dream. In the dream, he saw an angel. And he says he was sitting there looking at the angel, and the angel's just pointing like this. And he looks up, and there's Jesus standing there. And the guy says, Jesus looks at him and says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, not my mom. That's what Jesus said to this guy. So the guy wakes up 5 a.m., starts calling all of his family. He gets all of his family together, immediate family and extended family, and has them all convert from Catholicism to Jesus and into the church. So that was really cool. And all I could see is one of Dave's memes or something, with that's not my mom. Anyway, we'll leave that one for now. But so when we were in Blantyre, though, so many healings were happening. We didn't have time to get to everybody, so we just said, put your hands on wherever it hurts, and we're just going to say a prayer. We want testimonies. So many healings took place. 2 blind eyes opened and a deaf ear opened there. Vision became more clear. People just came up. They don't have glasses, so the ladies were just like squinting and whatever, and Chris would actually just press his thumbs into all their eye sockets, and then just back up. And they go, okay, now can you see me better? And all the ladies start smiling. That's the only way you know anything happens there, if you get a smile. I mean, you would think if your eye popped open or ear, like you'd started, going a little crazy. It's just and everything's good. So much of this stuff was happening that on the way home from Malawi, again, I asked, after I heard about the guy in his dream, I said, anything else? He goes, yeah. I don't know if you want to hear this one, but there were so many healings that took place in Blantyre that they literally brought people on their sick beds on the 3rd night when we weren't there because they heard what was going on. So Chris and I were a little upset because we actually were in town that day, but we didn't know. He had us on a day of rest there, so we didn't know that happened, but it was spreading so fast and so furious that they were bringing, I think, 6 people just on beds into the grounds. So it was so crazy. When we got into the Lilongwe, there was Chris called for back. He saw something with backs, and these ladies come up. 5 ladies, 6 ladies come up. And one after the other, they're healed, going back to their seats. Gets to the last lady. And if you've ever been there, they kind of like get a little hunched over, and they're, they've just been carrying stuff on their heads their whole life, I don't know. But, they're just getting a little bit older, and they're kind of hunched and to the last lady, and they're starting to straighten out, and Chris has them standing up, and kind of stretching out. And that's another key thing, too. When you pray for someone, get them to do something that they haven't done before. We almost questioned them like we were dumb. And we would say, okay, now move your body. Okay, you can move that way? And then we would ask them, well, what happened? And then they would testify, I felt this heat come into my body. I just felt something weird, like, oh, something was stretching. You'd see some of the people like just stretching and going, just a little bit crazy, trying to like figure out what was going on. And then they were released from the problem. So he gets to that last lady. Lady says, she just stands there. She doesn't go back to her seat. And he's like, is there something else? And she goes, yeah, my eyes. And he goes, you can't see? And she goes, it's hard for me to see. So he goes, okay. And he went like this, just went up and just said, eyes open. Big smile comes on her face. And he backs up and says, can you see me better? And she says, yes. And then, so he goes back to preach, and he turns around, she's still standing there. And he goes, is everything all right? And she goes, no, I'm hard of hearing too. So he walks up and just goes, ears open. And just another smile comes on her face. And she was just so elated, and then she went back and sat down after she got her fill. The people are so receptive. And I know some of you guys have all been there and have prayed for people, and I just really encourage you guys to walk in the power that God gave you. There's a reason why we carry these gifts. And there's a reason that we have a pastor that we have that says, if you're really good at prophecy, you should try teaching. Or you should try this, or you should try that. Get out of your comfort zone. If we don't get out of our comfort zone, we're going to walk with blinders on, and all that's going to do is lessen the kingdom because you're not using everything else that you have. You understand what I'm saying? Like as a trim carpenter, I'm good at trim. But if I need to put some shingles on a roof, I'll do it. If I need to put a bathtub in, it's going to go in. If someone's walking past me on the street, it got to that point with Chris and I that we were just kind of like, we would go after some people here and there, on the street. And, there was a couple people that kind of limped by us, and we're like looking at each other, and we kind of let them limp by, and we're like, oh, it's like, what are we going to do? But you get into that faith with someone, and, Chris, it was such a special trip, man, if you're watching. Really honor you, bro. It's something when you can walk with someone, too. An iron sharpening iron, It was like we were in the hotel room, and we were just talking about the word. We're out in the cafe. There were sometimes we got talking so loud, and we didn't realize who was around us. We were in some pretty nice places. And I won't go there. But we were in some pretty nice places, and we just got like just shouting about some things and getting excited, We were like going Joe Dahmer on the whole thing, and, it's like, when he gets excited in worship and you can hear him, like you hear like this really huge cry in the back of the church because he's running the projector up there. That's just Joe. He's just getting excited. Don't worry about it. But I have a scripture for you guys. 1 Timothy 4. Is he watching? Uh-oh. Is he giving me thumbs up, or is he? 1 Timothy 4:14. Do not neglect the gift that is in you, which was given to you by prophecy with the laying on of hands of the eldership. Meditate on these things. Give yourself entirely to them, that your progress may be evident to all. Is your progress evident to all? Is it? You have to put yourself in check. And this is all you. This has nothing to do with the pastors or the leadership. It said the leadership already laid hands on you. They did their part. They already laid hands on you. Now activate. Activate. And I know the last couple times that I've preached here, I've really harped on that. But it's so important to not just sit in that chair and feel insignificant, because that's what the devil wants you to think. He wants you just to sit there and do nothing. But your job is this: meditate on these things. Give yourself entirely to them, that your progress may be evident to all. It says a tree is known by its fruit. A tree is known by its fruit. You know, every time Chris was called up when we were in the crusade, it was, and please welcome evangelist Christopher Charles Lindbergh, you know, and McMoore would make this huge thing, you know, and if you hear, I can't do his voice, you know, but you know, he's loud, you've all heard him, and it was really exciting, but man, there was something about, is there something special about when Andre prophesies? Because he's a prophet. And I realized, listen to Chris, when he would give these, he would almost give like these Bible stories, like David and Goliath. And somebody actually had a sling in the crowd. He goes, let me see that sling. And he has a sling sticking up in front of him. And he was so focused on the sling, he totally forgot what he was talking about for a second. He actually had a sling in his hand. But there's something about an evangelist bringing forth a salvation message. There was a certain power inside of what he would do, and that message that he would bring. And it's easy to think, well, you know, there was a lot of kids there. There were a lot of people. You know, it's easy just to raise your hand in the crowd, and it is. But Chris brought, it was almost like with this evangelistic edge, with this gift that he has, it was almost like a dart, and he would just throw it, and it would like just split and stick into everybody. And every time I looked around, like all the hands were just up. And people were searching them out with papers and pens to get them hooked up into church. He made his gift evident. It was evident that he was an evangelist. So if you are, make it evident to people. I'm not saying you get kind of worked up. Like I was saying about praying, you pray too long and you're hanging on someone's head, you know, praying for them, and I just cast you out and I died, and you want to go after it, but it's not like that. The gift's not evident because of the emotion that you bring. The gift is evident by your fruit. And as you start to produce this fruit, you have testimonies. You have things. You have people. I always told the people the kids when we were in youth group, the kids, they want to see your scars. I can sit there and talk about other people and other ministries and stuff like that, but they're looking at me going, oh, okay, well, and they want to know what I've been through. They want to know what I've done. They want to know where I've been, because that's what makes sense to them. Because I'm standing in front of them, flesh to flesh. So don't be afraid. I'm not saying reveal secrets and talk dumb. But what I am saying is when, you know, if you've been through a problem, a lot of times we get into these matches with people about testimonies. Well, I was this, and I was this, and I was this. And it gets to the point, if you actually listen to some of these conversations, that you're edifying the sin. That you're exalting the sin. And this whole time that these guys are in this match of like measuring their sin, God's looking at them going, what are you talking about? What are these guys saying? But when you can relate to somebody and say, listen, I've been there. Don't talk about it. Just say, I've been there, and that's what God pulled me from. And this is where I am now. And this is who I am now. Because if it's not about that, you're totally stuck back there. You're not living with the evidence. You're not living with the evidence. You're not living with the fruit. We have to live with the fruit. Have to live with the fruit. So that last verse is good too. 1 Timothy 4. So 15, meditate on these things. Give yourself entirely to them, comma, that your progress may be evident to all. Take heed to yourself and to the doctrine. Continue in them, for in doing this you will save both yourself and those who hear you. And those who hear you. If Chris and I went off just a deep end out there in Malawi and weren't paying attention, they wouldn't have heard us. I actually heard at the end of our trip, we stayed in this fancy hotel at the end, and this one guy came up and said, "You actually got people saved?" The guy worked there in the hotel. And he said, we said, yeah. I said there was, I thought there was like 900 plus salvations. McMore came back to us and said there was over 1,000 salvations. And I know that there was at least 250 plus, 300 miracles and deliverances and people just falling out and being delivered just by, I watched Chris and myself at different times. Like we would just go and this person would just be acting up, or there was a couple people, and this was shouting and stuff, and it was just like, boom, and they would be on the ground. And that's it. The demons are subject to us. The only power they have is what you allow them to have. So if you don't allow them any power, they can't stay in you. So, So we were telling the guy at the hotel about the salvations and the miracles, and he was a Christian brother, and telling us about his church and wanted us to come there. And so I said to him, why are you so surprised at these numbers? I said, whenever I've been here with my pastor, other people, like, we always get a good size, like, number of people saved. It's funny with Big Papa here. I remember in Zimbabwe, we were at a grocery store, and Pastor Efield, he had loaded up the back of the truck with bags of money. Like their money was so worthless, there was garbage bags. They're just like throwing into the in the back of the truck. And so he gets in the truck, and Chris goes, "Oh, just wait a second, I'll be right back." And so I'm wondering, where's he going? We just pulled into a super. It wasn't like we were anywhere that he would be frequenting, like at any time, like on a trip. And so he gets out of the car and goes in and just starts talking to somebody about God. And just, do you know him? Do you know him? And that's another thing. They're all going to tell you they're saved. They'll all say, if you ask the question, do you know Jesus? That's the wrong question. Because they'll go, oh, yes. And you're thinking, oh, he's saved, and you can turn around and walk away. But then you look at him and go, no, are you saved? Do you have a personal relationship? And they'll try to say yes, and then it's no, and then you work yourself in. So that's what he was doing in the supermarket. Because it's ripe unto harvest there. It's there people, when you don't have medicine, or doctors. One of Chris's jokes was, Selima was driving so fast. We were saying, listen, you need to slow down. Because the last thing we want to do is end up in a Malawian hospital. Because you're watching kids literally walk around with no leg because they didn't know what to do, so they cut it off. I'm not kidding. It's like you see a kid on a crutch. Oh, what happened to him? Oh, it was cancer. They cut your leg off? Yeah, they cut your leg off. Or if you get caught stealing. You get caught stealing the car. So, I don't know. But anyway. So, the thing was with Chris, that was a joke. It was like, no, we don't want to end up in a Malawian hospital. But like I said, when you don't have medicine, you don't have the smallest things. I mean, the comfort that we have a bellyache, and I can go drink some Pepto-Bismol. They literally have a bellyache, and they have to live with it. And then, we think about, what's the things that you take? Or probiotics and antibiotics and all the stuff that we try to yeah, vitamins. I mean, there's a lot of things. I've been there since '06 and seen a lot of change. So it is going up. There's less guys. When we got there, it was like kids on the side of the street. Like there was no work. There was nothing. There was like, you're wondering what all these guys are doing. The population went from 6 million to 20 million people. And if you know the size of Malawi, I mean, it's like a little strip inside. It's like, what is it, like New Jersey or something inside of Africa. It's so small. And so if you have a jump from 6 million to 20 million people, that's a big jump. That's a real big jump. And without medicine and just some of the amenities that we have, that we can just reach into our closet, all they have is faith. All they have is faith. And I truly believe that's one of the reasons that we could go over there and just get these people healed. Because that they're just fully relying on God. And there's nothing else. And they're thinking, when you get out into Malawi, you're going to know, like it's a rural area. There's a little town there, but it's not anything that you want to be in. And I mean, these people are just there, and they just fully rely on faith. I wanted to read out of the Passion Translation, that 1 Timothy 4 as well. It says, "Don't minimize the powerful gift that operates in your life, for it was imparted to you by the laying on of hands of the elders and was activated through the prophecy they spoke over you. Make all of this your constant meditation and make it real with your life so everyone can see that you're moving forward. Give careful attention to your spiritual life and every cherished truth you teach. For living what you preach will then release even more abundant life inside you and to all who listen to you." And I want to entertain something for a second that is going to say the gifts, there's some natural gifts that we have too. There's natural things. Be excellent in what is good. Be excellent in what is good at your job. Like, what are you good at? What are your gifts? We need to take these things and really, really think about them. We almost take these things for granted. When just being able to build, you know, when I was over there, I was just noticing. We went to McMoore's got a new house. We took some pictures of it, and some of the things were broken. And I'm thinking, oh man, can you just like get up there and fix it? Like just, and I'm showing him, like just pushing the rafter up. I'm like, now if you had a nail, you could just like throw it in there, and this would be fine. And he doesn't even have that mindset or that skill set. And it's not his fault. It's just he just doesn't have it. But what do you have? What do you operate in? We need to operate excellent. So, oh yeah. We got to Magoe, and there were some old ladies that wanted some prayer. And so they came up and they got healed. We didn't think anything really happened. There was nothing that showed us any signs or whatever. But I guess they all went back to their pastor. And I think about 7 of them. And they said, we didn't know that the power of God was so real. And he's saying, like, well, what are you thinking? And they said, well, we always go to the witch doctor. These are Christian women that are living in Magoe, in a rural area, that what they understand is the witch doctor has power. And so then he says, well, how do you know that God has power? And they felt it because they were healed. They were going to him questioning, why are we healed? We didn't know that. Who are these guys? And what are they bringing? And so it's kind of an eye-opener, isn't it? It's like here they are sitting. I mean, how many years have we been there? 20? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think they get a little out, I guess. I don't know. Chris really wanted to find a witch doctor for you. He goes, I got to get to a witch doctor before Big Papa does, because that's what Chris always wanted. Bring me to a witch doctor. I want to. And Chris is saying, I'm like, no, I'm okay. We can stay right here and heal people. It's fine with me. And so we had some fun with that one. But isn't it amazing that you can sit under? That's what I'm saying. Realize what you have, man. You got to realize what you have and what you are, or you'll never put it to use. These women sat there for 20 years as we preached and preached and preached. Even there, Brother Leon, who's doing good, had some surgery today. And but when we were there, I remember that girl started screaming. Her ear popped open. So right there on the grounds, ear pops open. And she starts screaming. So these people have witnessed this. That was in 2006. And Pastor's been there since 97, 98. So they're witnessing all of this stuff. And just now they're saying, we didn't realize that this is where the power comes from. Because they totally didn't even, they put their blinders on. Oh, that was a really good message. Thanks, Pastor. That was a really good message. I really appreciate that. And then they get sick and they go to the witch doctor. And then they go back. And they think they're healed. But it's a temporary fix. They're always going back. It was such a blessing to see the real thing really hit those ladies. And I wish we had a little more time there, but some of the stuff got canceled. But that was one of the things in the hotel. I guess I never finished that. But there was the guy in the hotel was a Christian guy, and he was wondering about the salvations. And he said, how did you get that many people saved? And we said, we offered. And they said yes. And he goes, it's so weird. He goes, here in Malawi, we're under this pressure now with these white pastors and preachers and stuff coming in and actually casting spells on us. And it's not like you think like a witch doctor. It's more like they come in and they want their money. They're preaching for money. So they're offering after offering after offering after offering. And then they lay their hands on them and they almost feel the wickedness that's in it that they're bringing. This is what the guy's telling me. So, but that's pretty wicked. It's pretty wicked. But I'll tell you that we took up an offering. $16, man. And, Chris and I were talking in the hotel room, and I said, there's got to be some skin in the game here in Malawi. I looked at Slim. I said, "Do you want to keep having donations? You want to live on handouts? Is that what you want, or do you want something to grow? Do you want to be activated? Do you want something that all your people are working with?" And he says, "Oh yes, brother, that's what I want." So I said, "All right. Well, then what we're going to do tonight is we're going to do an offering." And Chris is like, "Yeah." And Chris took it, and he takes this offering. He flips open this tote top, and I don't know. Little tote top was maybe like this, like that. He had a picture on Facebook, and the thing was just like full of money. It looked like so much. There was actually so much money, people were making change out of it. They'd come up with a 500 and take 200 back with them. So we were laughing. Chris looks at me and goes, "Did you just see that?" I go, "The guy making change in the offering plate?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "They do that back at home all the time." And I'm kidding, I didn't say that. But it was really, really something cool to watch them give to their cause. It's their cause. It's not some white man's cause. It's not, because you're going to get stared at when you go. If you haven't gone, you have to go. It's when you get there, you're a part of them. And they make you feel that way. Right, Willard? He's going next. He hasn't been yet. He told me he's going. No, he didn't, but but it's really, really amazing. And to watch those guys give was something, man. I mean, You know if you can kind of compare it to like, if you do like a chair program and everybody buys a chair and you go into the church and you see that little plaque, that name on that chair, and we go, oh, I guess that guy bought a chair. But man, that guy bought a chair. He was investing into something. We have buildings, we have problems, we have issues, and they have to be invested into. And that's what I was telling him. That's what this offering is about. I said, listen, I don't just come here and I give. I told him, I come here and I invest. I invest into your life. If you want a good message, and that's fine, but listen, if I'm not investing something, if I'm not giving something, it's worthless. We have to invest. If you haven't gone, you got to go. You got to go. Some people say, oh, no, that's not me. The plane gets you there, drops you off. You get on the plane, you go home. It's so cool. So cool. So, trying to think if there was any other testimonies that really, really stood out. I mean, we had some really, really awesome conversations with Salima. He really opened up. And the last night we were with him, I told him, I was like, listen, dude, I'm so proud of you. This is, he was talking about the way that he gives and the way he was doing things. And you're kind of used to talking with these guys, and they're a closed book. And it's like you are just got a pry bar, and you're just prying. I'm going, come on, just say something. But him and Promise just like opened up and talked about the orphanage and talked about the kids and talked about the needs that were real and talked about the people that were serving them. And I looked at him. I didn't tell Pastor this yet, but he started pouring out in a way about the abuse that he's faced from different people. And I want to say this right because it's really important. It's not like the comparison with Big Papa isn't the same, but it's what I saw in him was people misused him, and he still loved them. People misused him again, and he still loved them. And then he would even go as far to check up on them and give them a phone call. Or stop by their house if they had a baby. Or what? Because I asked them about these certain people that had left the ministry and how they were doing. And, oh, well, they don't talk to me anymore. And this, that, and the other thing. But I looked at him. I was like, there's a reason why you are Chris Scarenzi's son. I was like, the stories that you're telling me are the stories that I've heard out of Big Papa's mouth. These are things, when he started cutting loose on the realities that went on, it's really hard to grasp the realities that are going on there when you're there for 10 days. All you see is he wants to get you in the car, get you to preach. He wants to get you in the car to leave. You know, we're fighting him going, no, we want to pray for people. We want to, and he's like, no, get in the car, we're going to go. And it's a different mentality. But, so I'll have to work on him about that. Because that's not the way Big Papa taught us. It's, you stay with the people, you pray with the people, you get with them. You know, and so he really opened up in a way that was really special, and really told us the needs of the people. And so, as I guess as an overseer of Malawi at this point right now, it was really, really awesome to hear the needs, and also to hear the prosperity in his ministry. And I don't know if you know this, but this is a man at 19 years old that was sleeping on the ground in a mud hut. That when Pastor Chris and Bob went over, he gave them the mud hut. And Chris's story is, you probably heard the rat story, right? And but he said, I said, well, where did Salima sleep? And he goes, outside. I said, how do you know? He goes, because all night, all I could hear is, and the mosquitoes, they're everywhere. He said, all you could hear is them hitting their bodies out on the thing, out on the porch. And the baby. Oh, gosh, that makes me want to cry. Oh, was he? 3 months old. So here's this man crying at the table with me Sunday night, this past Sunday night, honoring the apostle. Do you remember when Andre did the apostle thing and called Chris forward as the apostle? And wasn't it fitting that McMoore was sitting right where Stacy was sitting? I was like, we didn't even know he was coming in that day. We had no idea. No idea he was coming in that day. And there's McMoore. And the reason why this is special is because whenever you traveled with Pastor over to Africa, it was always apostle. This is my apostle. Chris Carinzi. And he would do this whole thing. We get there, and they would lay all their scarves on the ground. And we would walk across their scarves. It was the most humbling experience, wasn't it? It's like we get out of the van, and we're like, and it wasn't just them laying scarves down. They were surrounding us. They were on each side of us. And we're walking through. And here I am, like a dumb American. I got my camera up, and I'm taking pictures. I'm like, isn't this crazy? You know, but the footage was pretty special, though, too. But here's this guy honoring this man, and from a mud hut, now into a nice house. And, you know, there's been times in his life where he's been challenged, and he's watched other people receive more money from the States. And these people saying, what are you doing? Why don't you find other people? Why don't you do this? And he's had like, I don't know if he's had offers, but he's had people speaking in his ear about leaving the church. And he looks at me and just starts with tears in his eyes. And he was like, I can't leave Chris. I can't leave the apostle. I am his son. And I looked at him and I said, you see your kids? His second, is El Shom the second oldest? The girl? I think so. Well, there's Shalom, but there's another girl, Elishama. And she just took a law test the other day in college. Man was sleeping on the ground, and he honored a man. And he followed a man. How many thousands of miles away? I don't know. 10,000 miles away. From Malawi, from rural nothing, to Blantyre, kind of a thuggish city, into Lilongwe, the capital city. 20 years following a man with the whispers in his ears. Why are you doing this? Who are you listening to? Why? There's more money out there. And some of the stuff he told me, I was like, I guarantee that's a lie. He told me how this one guy was getting all this money. I was like, I know the guy that was he didn't have that money to give. I was like, brother, you were being lied to. And so I just wanted to share that. It was a really, really special time with him. And so with that, I think I'm done. But yeah, if you haven't gone, I really challenge you to get overseas. It's an eye-opener. And don't just go to South Africa. You know, there's a McDonald's every corner there in South Africa. It's kind of like here. It's easy. You're like, oh, I'll do missions work anytime in Cape Town. Oh, man. Cape Town, they put us in this flat, and it's like, what are we looking at the ocean? You know, it's great. Yeah. So just really challenge you guys. Be praying for the orphans. You know, we have a lot of things coming that are going to change up over there. Be praying for McMoore. Pray for strength. Pray for strength. Pray for strength. He's got pastors that kind of come and go, and he's got a lot of guys that stay pretty steady with him. But pray for strength with him. Pray for the orphans. Pray for the orphans. We want to get them into this orphanage. Right now they're being schooled there, and they go back home to places with grandparents, friends of parents and stuff, and most of the parents have died from AIDS. So I know that last year they had a Christmas party of 167 kids, and did a little video. I think we showed it last year. But be praying for the orphans. Be praying for this be praying that God just opens doors to get this thing moving, because we want to see this. We want to see this move. We've seen some of the orphans and how they were educated, and to the point where they were biggest mechanics in Malawi, or in the region, I think, down there, right? Yeah. So and that was based off of loose change offerings. Loose change offerings. So be praying for McMoore and his wife and his family. And so, yeah, bless you guys. Yeah, Dave.
You're awesome. So glad. So good to have Mark back. In just a minute, we're going to dismiss, and we're going to, if you're free, we're going to do presents with the kids upstairs at the end of their Christmas party. So there's gifts for each child, and they're going to receive their gifts, and we get to watch them open it. So we want to encourage everyone to go and be a part of this moment with the kids. I know for me, watching little kids open gifts on Christmas is like, it's amazing. It's amazing. So if you don't have little kids at home, this is your chance to get your fix watching little kids open gifts and seeing their faces, and it's really exciting. Also, another announcement, if you purchased or gave to receive a manual for this class and you missed a week or you're missing a chapter of this manual, there's only 5 chapters. I have copies of each week's chapter for you. So come see me, maybe after we see the children open their gifts, come see me in the Welcome Center, and I'll have these kind of laid out by week, and you can just grab your copy if you're missing it. All right? Lastly, I just want to leave you with a quick homework assignment. Is that okay? So in Galatians 6, Paul is writing, and he says, I'm just going to skip to the chase, but in verse 2 he says, bear one another's burdens, thereby fulfilling the law of Christ. If anyone thinks he's something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But each one must examine his own work, and then he will have reason for boasting in regard to himself alone and not in regard to another. For each one will bear his own load. So he's saying is, bear one another's burdens and take into account your own work and your own load. It's not either or, it's both. But maybe, just maybe, someone else's burden is an opportunity for you to move in the gifts of the Spirit. Someone else's burden. It's something they're wrestling with, struggling with, walking through. It's a burden to them. It's an opportunity for a miracle. So if you're finishing this class tonight, you're saying, I want to go to Malawi. I want to see blind eyes open. I want to see deaf ears hearing. I want to do the stuff. It looks like someone else's burden. And so what I want to do is I want to encourage you, as I'm going to pray and we're going to close the service, but I want to encourage you as you drive home tonight, ask the Lord for 1 or 2 names or faces of people and a burden they might be carrying, or maybe just ask him to highlight somebody that you could call and say, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Because you're going to, in so doing that, you're going to enter into a space where you get to minister to people and move in your gifts. It's a really easy way to just get going. All right? Father, I thank you so much that your kingdom is local and international, and that we get to be a part of it. We get to be a part of it in prayer, and there's no distance in the Spirit, and we get to be a part of it through relationships and through our generosity and our finances. And Lord, we are so grateful that you've brought us into this bigger game called the kingdom of God. God, I ask that you'd empower and stir hearts tonight as we go out. God, let us have the enthusiasm of little children opening presents as we move into the plans and the purposes and the gifts of your Spirit that you would have for us to shine your light and your love to the world around us. I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Bless you.